Okay, today we are looking at tribal movements all over India. India, we cannot look at only one community, tribes including us. We are also a part of India. And this is a very long history. It will cover 1854 up to, say, the 1930s. Let's look at, firstly, the meaning of a tribe. What is a tribe? Now, it is common to all that we have a common ancestry or a common ancestor. Most of our tribal communities are quite self-sufficient. That means we are quite independent. We are not very much dependent on other societies, and we have very limited contact with them, interaction with them, even in the past. And the land is very important to us. Our specific area or territory is there, and we know our land. For example, our land. Now, in the context of India, we are identified as scheduled tribes or ST. Simply means that we are recognized in the constitution, and you will find it clearly there in article 366 oblique 25 and article 342. We are put in schedule 5th or 5th schedule of the constitution. As of now, there are about 645 tribes in India. Now let's look at the map of India. You can see tribals are not only there in the northeast, not only in Manipur, it's all over India. Okay, let's move on now. Now let's look at the causes. As I told you in history, it's important to ask the question, why? Why did this happen? Now we're looking at tribal uprisings or tribal rebellions or tribal revolts. The first thing is to look at how tribals live, how they survive. And they're mainly dependent on the forest and on their land especially, whether it is for agriculture, for hunting, for fishing, whether it is for firewood. Many things are dependent on the land itself. So when the British came, this was all disturbed or disrupted. Non-tribals also started coming into the land. In the past, agriculture was not settled, but now it began to be settled. And the land became less for the tribal communities. And so slowly, tribals began to be in the status of, in their own land, they became landless, just laborers, people who were just working on the land to produce something. Money economy came in, so tribals rather got into this money economy, that means trade system. Money is something that is very unique to us, even say for our tribe. We say danka, sana, paisa. In the past, how would we trade, for example? If you had a pig or a cow or a buffalo, you would trade it, or mithun. For example, even let's say bride price is calculated in sale, isn't it? Sale sagi, sale som are there. This is not calculated in money. So money came into our tribal society also. The access for money to tribals was only to money lenders or the non-tribals, and they would exploit them because tribals generally are not well educated. So therefore, they would be exploited, and when they couldn't repay the money, it led to the loss of the land also and loss of livelihoods. The tribal societies in the past, the land system, once again I keep stressing on the land. Without land, we lose our identity, we lose everything. So this system was disrupted by the British. Restrictions were there even on the forest. Okay, now when we look at society itself, tribal society is very unique because there is no caste system. And everyone is the same basically. Only in our society distinction is that we have, it's more or less a term of respect. That means the eldest in the family, Miopa, has got all the responsibility, as I will not say power, to look after the younger ones. And the younger ones have also a duty to respect the elder ones. So it was very much not just in terms of, or let us say the powerful and not non-powerful. It was a relationship based on trust, on respect. And this was disturbed again by the coming of Western culture. The tribals now began to be in the lowest class of society. Even till now, people look down on tribals as lowest bottom of societies or untouchables, people whom we cannot even touch. So we became to be in that category, which is unfortunate. And so naturally, protests would be there. And the last point is that in legal terms or in official terms, a forest department was set up. This was done in 1864. Now, this more or less controlled all the forests in India. This Forest Act is also a source of trouble or tension between the tribal communities and the forest department or the government. Because tribals have their own land and area, and they are dependent on it, on the forest. So their whole livelihood is dependent on the forest. The fact is that forests and tribals very much they need each other. They are very much in touch with nature. So these are the causes. Now, the first thing we have to look at this was the Santhal Rebellion. It's also called the Santhal or the Santhal Hul. Now, these are people you will find mainly in the Chota Nagpur area and the present areas of Jharkhand, Bihar, some parts of Bengal as well. So let's look at what happened there. It was a protest against both British colonial system and the zamindari system. The dates, let's look at it. It was quite strong because, by the way, martial law, that means they had to bring in the army to control it. It started in 1855. It lasted for about a couple of months up to January 1856, and it was brutally ended by the troops. We have to look at brothers belonging to the Murmu tribe or the Murmu clan. Sidhu, Kanhu. The immediate result was that the Santhal Pargana Tenancy Act was created by the British, and Santhal Pargana was also created with the creation of Jharkhand in modern day India. As you can see, tribals don't have access to modern weapons or tools of war. So on one side they were fighting the British with bows and arrows, and so you can easily imagine which side is going to win. And the British also respected them because Santals, bows and arrows, they would put poison in the arrows, but they didn't use that poison arrows against the British. They would use poison arrows for hunting, and the British were really cruel. They even use elephants to destroy their villages. Okay, next we'll look at the Bhogta Rising in Palamau. This is also part of Jharkhand. This is happening in 1857. Of 1857 is carrying on in other places, and somehow it is minimized, but still it created a lot of trouble for the East India Company. Remember, East India Company was more or less ruling India or controlling India up to 1857, 1858 rather. The leaders were Nilambar and Pitambar. Now, the Bhokta is also a clan of that area of Palamau. The unique thing is that they declare independence. They said, we don't want to be under this company, East India Company, we declare independence. When they were outnumbered by the British, they hid in the forest. Eventually, they were, of course, arrested and executed. They were hanged by the British. Still, Palamau is important because it was a significant revolt. Now, where is Palamau? You could find it on the western or the northwestern part of Jharkhand. And these are the remains of the Palamau fort. Now, this is the place where they carried on their activities. The next thing is the Naikdas Revolt. The most significant one takes place in 1868. For this, Naikdas is a tribal community in Gujarat in the Panchmal Hills. Now they also fought the British, or rather the British policy of expansionism and interference. Basically, British were expanding into the areas. So here we have two people, Rup Singh and Joria Bhagat, to establish their own Dharma Raj. It was basically a socio-religious movement. So they didn't want the British entering. Even with their missionaries, even with their modern systems, they didn't want that. Don't get mistaken with the Dev movement. Dev movement, there is no such thing. Rather, we should identify it as the Naikdas Revolt. It's a forest tribe in Gujarat. Okay, perhaps the most important personality in tribal revolts, if you can count one person, that is Birsa Munda, an Indian tribal freedom fighter, religious leader, and a folk hero rather. A hero is a good word to describe him because he was quite heroic. He belonged to the Munda tribe. This is also part of it's a large area. This is a very famous slogan which he put up. It said, let the kingdom of the queen be ended and our kingdom be established. Remember that tribals have their own system of leadership. It could be in our system, we say Hausa. And then they could not identify, they didn't want the British queen to rule over them and our own kingdom. So he was reflecting back on the past history of the Munda tribe. The thing about Birsa Munda is that he was very much a product of Western education. Missionaries had already established some kind of school system or Western education system. And his growing up years, he was influenced by that. It was not just a direct protest against the British, but here his strategy was very much of a social and of a reformist nature. Now, some of the things were very practical and very useful. For example, don't drink, stop drinking liquor. It's a good thing, isn't it? Do you agree? Even this is a problem of many tribal societies, most tribal societies. So stop drinking, clean your villages. Yes, most villages nowadays are quite clean, but in the past it wasn't that clean. And also stop believing in superstition or witchcraft. And also he was against the missionaries and the non-tribals or the landlords or zamindars. The thing about tribals is that it's also a history of warfare, of clashes with neighboring tribes, with neighboring clans. So he wanted to stop that, stop killing each other. Basically, we are all brothers, part of the same family. Now, unfortunately, this has also continued till now. So he wanted the Munda people to stop killing each other and to live peacefully among each other and walk on your own land and cultivate your own land. Live in harmony with yourself, with your land, with your nature. The British were worried because somehow it was a political aim also. If all the tribals in that area were united and all the missionaries left and they were forced to leave, the zamindari system would collapse, the British would not get any revenue. So they arrested and they put him in jail for 2 years and they released again. And then when he was released, he started this movement again. His followers, in the second round actually, they got a little violent. They attacked the police stations and the churches and they raided property of the moneylenders and zamindars. Remember in the Deccan this had also happened. And even they raised their flags. So the British, when they saw this movement coming up, they had to put him in jail again. And unfortunately, in the jail, he died. But the importance of this movement is that the British were forced to introduce laws so that the tribals of that area, Birsa belonged to the Munda community or the Munda tribe. So the laws were introduced so that the land could not be easily taken over by the non-tribals or the people who were settled by the British. They were called Dikus. And also it showed that tribals, they could unite. Of course, every movement needs a good, capable leader. So also it proved that they had a capacity to protest and also express their resentment or their discontentment against the British colonial rule. So it proved that. All right.